Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion talks about a very interesting concept called about this person called a Mitzora and coming down with a disease called Tzara'at. It's basically the idea is that somebody might have this lesion on their skin, and the question is the size and the color and all these kind of different kind of questions, and we have to know whether or not they become ritually impure, and if they do, they have to be isolated from the community, they have to be quarantined for a certain amount of days, and so on and so forth. How do we judge them to figure out whether or not this is a problem or not? They don't go to a scholar necessarily, they go to the priest. And the Torah tells us as follows. This is chapter number 13, verse number 3, in the book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra, and it says as follows. The priest should examine this lesion on the skin and see whether or not it's a problem. And it goes into the details of telling us what they're looking for. And then the verse finishes with the words, says the priest should examine it. So the Torah repeats itself a second time, and then should pronounce him ritually impure. Obviously, if it's not the way the Torah describes it, then the priest examines a second time as well and tells us that the person is pure. Now, here's the question. We always know that Torah is very, very particular on the words that it chooses and does not repeat itself unless it's necessary. So the question is, if the Torah just said that the person should be examined by the priest, then when he finishes examination, Torah should say, and therefore the priest pronounces him ritually impure or ritually pure. Why does Torah have to say that again? A second time, the priest re-examines the person. Imagine you go to the doctor's office and you ask the doctor to take a look at your skin. Let's just say you're going to the dermatologist, and he looks at your skin and tells you, and is about to tell you what you have on your skin. If this lesion is, what kind of medicine to give you for what you have. He says, 1 second, let me just take a second look. I mean, why do you have to take a second look? You just looked for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it should be, taking a look. Why do you have to look a second time? So here we have a fascinating lesson the Torah is trying to teach us. And for this, we'll also answer another question. Why is it that the priest does this examination, not a scholar, somebody who's knowledgeable? Imagine you going to the rabbi or the priest with your skin problem instead of going to the dermatologist, to the doctor. It doesn't make any sense. The answer is as follows. When it comes to blessings, we generally say, Sher Kedushanim ben Sotav Tzivanu, God, we sanctify you with our mitzvah and so on and so forth. And we say the blessing, light the Shabbat candles, put on tefillin, whatever, eating the food, all this kind of hamotzi, etc., etc. When it comes for the priest to say the blessing on blessing the Jewish people that we do, in America we do this on the holidays. In Israel they actually do it every day, or at least on the Shabbat, and so on and so forth. And a fascinating thing, they finish off the blessing with the word bi'ahava, with love. Very interesting. Why do they say with love? And the answer is like this, because a Kohen, a priest, when they look at the Jewish people, they look so with a certain set of glasses, and it's called love. Therefore, the Torah is telling us, when the Kohen, when the priest, is examining the lesion on the skin of a person and trying to figure out whether or not they have this spiritual disease that manifests itself in the physical form of this lesion on their skin, he wants to know whether or not this person has a spiritual deficiency. The eyes that they are looking at or through has to be a lovely set of eyes, a set of eyes that uses a judgment of love. And therefore, after he looks at the technical, physical expression, how it manifests on the person, he has to take a second set of eyes and say, now, who is this person who has this lesion? So in other words, the first time he examines, he's examining the lesion itself. The second time the Torah tells us to examine, the Torah is telling us now examine the person themselves. Because it's not always, the same situation. You have to know the problem, and then you have to know the person who has the problem. And I think this is a beautiful lesson for all of us in our lives. So often we're asked a question, and we're answering the question itself. But then you have to say, 1 second, who is the person who asked that question? Maybe that person who's asking the question deserves a different kind of answer than the other person who asked the same exact question. And I think this is a lesson for all of us. Not only do we have to answer the person, but also answer that person with love. Shabbat Shalom.